a challenge for local, national, and international responders. We must commend ourselves as a continent for taking the initiative to come up with the Kampala Convention. While I acknowledge that our countries are party to almost all the international and regional human rights instruments, we must pride ourselves in being the first continent that has taken the initiative to give birth to human rights instruments which comprehensively address the human rights challenges faced by the internally displaced persons. This is a welcome development, as it is often said that acknowledging that we have a problem is the first step towards resolving it. As we all know, the Kampala Convention is an innovative regional response to the rights and needs of internally displaced persons across Africa, addressing every phase of displacement from prevention to solutions. Being one of the newest treaties in the world, the Kampala Convention was negotiated in 2009 and became binding in 2012 on all those states that had signed and ratified or acceded to it as per Article 17 of the Convention. Ladies and gentlemen, it is right that the primary responsibility for respecting, protecting, and promoting the human rights of persons falls squarely on the individual states. This is an integral aspect we must all be alive to when we discuss human rights issues. Accordingly, as internally displaced persons are first and foremost our nationals, it is our primary responsibility as governments to protect them. National responsibility is a core concept of any response to internal displacement. It is a fundamental operating principle of our governments. The international law principle of responsibility to protect enjoins states to adopt the steps to implement measures that will ensure the enjoyment of rights by their citizens and other nationals from other jurisdictions. To that end, I implore all countries that have ratified or acceded to the Kampala Convention to move a step further and domesticate the provisions of this convention into their national legislation. Admittedly, the development of national legislation to implement international human rights treaties is one of the best possible avenues to build a strong foundation for the enjoyment of such rights. Further, our national governments must adopt the necessary measures that will ensure that the rights of the internally displaced persons are recognized. Distinguished guests, one important issue that has become so significant in development economies today is the issue of data gathering. Statistical information is very instrumental for planning purposes. As member states to the Kampala Convention strategize on the implementation of this convention, I implore you to develop systematic data gathering methods on internal displacements. This will go a long way in ensuring that we have accurate statistics of internally displaced persons for more effective planning. More and better data of internally displaced persons is needed to meet African governments' commitments to not only the Kampala Convention, but the SEDAI framework for disaster risk reduction, the United Nations Agenda for Humanity, the Africa Regional Strategy to Disaster Reduction, and the Sustainable Development Goals. Comprehensive and disaggregated data will go a long way in ensuring that internally displaced persons are well protected. Ladies and gentlemen, one important considerations that I would like you to consider is the need to build true and sustainable peace within our communities. I'm always of the view that if our governments manage to build the foundations of stable nations, they will constitute one of the best ways of resolving the challenges of internally displaced persons. As we all know, prevention is better than cure. Securing stability on the African continent will go a long way towards meeting the developmental needs of the continent and thereby obviating the recurrence of internal conflicts on our continent. As I have alluded to above, internal displacements are also a result of droughts and natural disasters. In that regard, our members to interact and share notes on how to create effective frameworks for assisting our internally displaced. Drought, a perennial concern for whole swathes of the continent, has an indirect and incremental impact on displacement that is hard to capture precisely. With climate change intensifying weather extremes, the number of drought internally displaced persons off the radar is set to grow. In the spirit of leaving no one behind, we must certainly have accurate data at our disposal. This Conference of States Parties, therefore, serves as a mechanism for strengthening cooperation among states parties in the implementation of the objectives of the Convention. While focus may be on the mechanisms, it is important to have a holistic approach towards internally displaced persons. These are citizens just like any other within the borders of our respective countries who deserve more protection and assistance. The subsequent Conference of State Parties to the Convention must certainly demystify some misconstrued concepts. A fortnight ago, Zimbabwe launched a $200 million global appeal for aid as a result of violent floods, which claimed many lives and left thousands homeless in our country. The cyclone Dineo induced the floods, destroyed infrastructure worth millions of dollars, including bridges, schools, and clinics. This was a double tragedy which mostly affected people in already drought-stricken areas of our country. I urge the African Union to invest in research institutions to study the climate and advise policymakers appropriately. It is my hope that this conference will adopt mechanisms for fostering cooperation and solidarity among states parties in the implementation of the Convention. Finally, I commend the experts from member states and international partners for the work done over the past 2 days. in preparation for the ministers' meeting today. Without your active participation, none of the successes we are recording today would have been ready for adoption. I understand that there were elections to the Bureau. I would like to congratulate the Republic of Zimbabwe for being chosen to be the first chair of the Bureau. It is my sincere hope that under your guidance and stewardship, the implementation of the Kampala Convention will materialize among all the national governments, thereby promoting the protection of human rights for all and ultimately creating more humane and secure societies on our continent, Africa. With these few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure and honor to declare the first conference of state parties to the Kampala Convention duly and officially opened. I thank you.
I want to, on behalf of Her Excellency, Madam Sesuma, thank His Excellency, Honorable Manangagwa, for those very encouraging remarks, which obviously must have resonated with a lot of us who are here and will serve us very well in the deliberations to come. I want to also announce that His Excellency is very tight on time, and from here we'll be proceeding to have a photo ops upon which His Excellency will take leave. But in the meantime, the Honorable Minister of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare wants to present His Excellency with a gift in appreciation of the time that His Excellency has spent with us here. I would now want to call on Madam Precious Sibia, representative of the Ministry, Director of Legal Services from the Ministry of Public Service, to graciously hand over the present to His Excellency. I thank you. We shall now proceed to have the group photo taken. The protocol will lead us to where we're going to have this.